10 years ago, the rain came down in sheets that October night, turning the gravel driveway into a river of mud and memory. Mara stood at the edge of the porch, her suitcase heavy in one hand, the other clutching a folded piece of paper that felt like it weighed more than everything she was taking with her. Behind her through the window, she could see him sleeping. Ethan, his face peaceful in the lamplight, unaware that when morning came, she would already be gone. She had written the letter 3 times. The first was too honest. The second was too cruel. The third was just 2 words, I'm sorry, Biwam. It wasn't enough, she knew that. But the truth that she was terrified of becoming her mother, terrified of staying and eventually destroying what they had felt too complicated to explain in a letter, too raw to say out loud. So she left it on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker he would use in the morning and walked out into the rain. Some places you can never really leave, she would learn. You just pretend you did. The key stuck in the lock the way it always had, requiring that specific twist to the left before it would turn. Mara stood on the porch of her grandmother's house, her hand trembling slightly as muscle memory took over. Twist left, push, turn right, click. 10 years and the door still remembered her. She wasn't sure she remembered herself. Mom, is this where you grew up? Lily's voice pulled her back. Her daughter stood at the bottom of the porch steps looking up at the old Victorian house with wide eyes. At 8 years old, Lily had her father's practical nature, but Mara's sensitivity, a combination that sometimes felt like a blessing and sometimes like a curse. Part of the time, Mara said, pushing the door open, the smell of cedar and old books washed over her. I lived here with my grandmother after my mom left. She hadn't meant to say that last part. It just slipped out the way truth sometimes does when you're tired. Lily was quiet for a moment, then picked up her backpack. Like how Dad left us. Mara's chest tightened. That was different, honey. Because you asked him to go. Sometimes her daughter was too perceptive for comfort. Mara had tried to frame the divorce gently, but Lily was old enough to know the difference between a story and the truth. Because we both decided it was better, Mara said finally, which was close enough to honest. Come on, let's see what shape this place is in. The house was exactly as she remembered, and nothing like it at all. The furniture was covered in dust sheets that looked like ghosts in the afternoon light. The hardwood floors still creaked in the same spots. But everything felt smaller somehow, the way childhood places do when you return to them as an adult. Her grandmother had passed 18 months ago, leaving Mara the house and a note that simply said, come home when you're ready. She hadn't been ready then. She wasn't sure she was ready now. But Seattle had become a city of ghosts. Her failed marriage, her ex-husband's new girlfriend, the architecture firm, where everyone whispered about her divorce during coffee breaks. Asheville at least offered different ghosts. Older ones, the kind you could maybe learn to live with. This room is mine, Lily announced, running up the stairs. Her footsteps echoed through the empty house, filling it with life in a way it hadn't had in years. Mara followed slowly, her hand trailing along the banister. The wood was smooth under her fingers, worn down by generations of hands. Her grandmother's, her mother's before she left, her own when she was young and thought leaving was the same thing as freedom. She had learned the difference the hard way. The next morning, Mara woke to the sound of hammering. For a confused moment, she thought she was back in Seattle, listening to the construction on the building next door. Then she remembered where she was and why, and the weight of it settled over her like a blanket too heavy for the season. She found Lily in the kitchen, carefully spreading peanut butter on bread. You're up early, Mara said. I couldn't sleep. The house makes noises. Lily didn't look up from her task. Not scary noises, just old house noises. Mara poured herself coffee from the pot she'd set up the night before. The coffee maker was new, bought at a Target on the drive across the country. She'd left the old one in Seattle, left a lot of things there. We'll get used to it, she said, though she wasn't sure which of them she was trying to convince. They spent the morning unpacking boxes, transforming the ghost-covered house into something that resembled a home. Mara worked methodically the way she approached her architecture projects, one room at a time, one decision at a time until the chaos resolved into order. By noon, she needed air. Want to go into town, she asked Lily. Get some lunch, look around. Lily nodded, already reaching for her jacket. Can we see your school, the one you went to? Maybe, Mara said, though the thought of driving past Asheville High made her stomach tighten. Too many memories there. Too many versions of herself she'd tried to leave behind. Downtown Asheville had changed in the decades since she'd left. New shops, new restaurants, the kind of carefully curated bohemian aesthetic that attracted tourists and drove up property values. But underneath the fresh paint and artisanal coffee shops, it was still the same town. The mountains still ringed it like protective arms. The air still had that particular crispness that only came in the fall. They walked down Biltmore Avenue, Lily darting between shops while Mara tried to reconcile the town she remembered with the one that existed now. It felt like looking at two photographs superimposed, the past visible through the present, neither one quite solid. "I'm hungry," Lily announced, stopping in front of a small cafe with window boxes full of late-season flowers. The sign above the door read Grace's Place in hand-painted letters. Mara didn't recognize the name, which meant it was new, safe, no memories waiting inside. She was wrong about that. The cafe was warm and crowded, filled with the chatter of lunch conversations and the hiss of the espresso machine. They found a table by the window, and Mara was studying the menu when she heard it. His laugh. She would have known it anywhere, even after 10 years. Low and genuine, the kind of laugh that made you want to know what was funny, even if you'd missed the joke. Her hand tightened on the menu. She told herself not to look. Told herself it couldn't be him, that she was just tired and emotional and projecting. Told herself a lot of things that turned out to be lies. Because when she looked up, there he was. Ethan Hayes stood at the counter ordering coffee. He looked older, they both did, she supposed. His hair was shorter, threaded with gray at the temples. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, practical clothes that somehow made him look more solid, more real than the memories she'd carried of him. And he was laughing with the barista, that easy charm he'd always had, making the woman smile as she prepared his order. Mara's first instinct was to leave, grab Lily, make some excuse, get out before he saw her. But she'd run once before, and it had taken her 10 years to come back. She wasn't going to run again. So she stayed seated, her heart pounding, and waited. He turned from the counter with his coffee, scanning the room for a place to sit. His eyes passed over her once casual, then snapped back. The smile faded from his face. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the crowded cafe. Mara tried to read his expression, surprise, definitely, but beneath that, something harder to name. Not quite anger, not quite pain, something that lived in the space between. He walked over. Each step felt inevitable and impossible at the same time. "Mara," he said when he reached the table. His voice was exactly the same. That was somehow the worst part. "Ethan." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "Hi. You're back." It wasn't a question. It wasn't quite an accusation either, though it lived close to that territory. "I am." For how long? The question hung between them, weighted with all the unspoken history. Mara felt Lily watching them, her daughter's intuitive radar, picking up on the tension, even if she didn't understand its source. "Permanently," Mara said. "I inherited my grandmother's house." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. "I heard about Mrs. Chen. I'm sorry." "Thank you." The conversation was so polite, it hurt. Like they were strangers making small talk instead of two people who once knew every secret the other had. Two people who had planned a future that never happened. "This is my daughter," Mara said, because she needed to say something, and that seemed safer than everything else she couldn't say. Lily, this is an old friend, Ethan." Lily looked between them with those two perceptive eyes. "You knew my mom when she was young." "I did," Ethan said, and something in his voice softened. "Nice to meet you, Lily." "Are you having lunch?" Lily asked. "You could sit with us, if you want." "No," Mara thought, "please don't. I'm not ready for this." But Ethan was already pulling out a chair, his movements careful, deliberate. "Sure," he said, "if that's okay with your mom." He looked at Mara. When he said it, really looked at her for the first time. And in that look, she saw everything they weren't saying. The anger that had dulled to resignation. The hurt that had scarred over but never quite healed. The question that had haunted them both for a decade. What if, of course, Mara said, because what else could she say? He sat down. They ordered food. Neither of them really wanted, making conversation that carefully avoided everything that mattered. Ethan asked about Seattle. Mara asked about his life here. Lily filled the silences with chatter about her new school starting next week And wasn't it cool that they'd driven all the way across the country? Mara learned in fragments that Ethan was a veterinarian now. He had his own practice on the edge of town. He liked it, found it rewarding. The way he said it made it sound like a rehearsed answer, the kind you gave when you didn't want to get into the real story. She didn't ask about the ring. He wasn't wearing the pale line on his finger that suggested one had been there recently. Didn't ask about the shadows under his eyes, or the way his smile didn't quite reach them anymore. There would be time for those questions later, maybe. Or maybe there wouldn't. She wasn't sure which she preferred. Mom used to live here, Lily said, apropos of nothing. But then she left, like her mom left her. The table went silent. Mara felt her face flush. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his hands tightened around his coffee cup. Lily, Mara started. It's okay, Ethan said quietly. People leave sometimes. It doesn't always mean what we think it means. He was looking at Mara when he said it, and she couldn't tell if he was talking to Lily or to himself or to some version of her from 10 years ago who couldn't hear him anymore. I left because I was scared, Mara found herself saying. She hadn't planned to. The words just came out raw and honest in a way she hadn't been in years. Not because I wanted to. Ethan's jaw tightened. Is there a difference? I think so. Yes. Does it matter? The question landed between them like a stone thrown into still water, ripples spreading out in all directions. Before Mara could answer, a boy appeared at their table. He looked about Lily's age, maybe a little older, with Ethan's dark hair and a face that was still growing into its features. Dad, can I have money for a muffin? He asked, then noticed Mara and Lily. Oh, sorry, didn't know you were with people. Noah, this is Mara and her daughter Lily, Ethan said. His voice had shifted, taken on that carefully neutral tone parents use when they're trying to shield their children from complicated adult emotions. Mara and I knew each other a long time ago. Cool, Noah said in the way kids do when they're not particularly interested. Then to Lily, are you new here? We just moved, Lily said. I'm starting at Asheville Elementary next week. That's my school. I'm in 4th grade. Me too. Just like that, the two children were absorbed in conversation about teachers and recess and the best spots to eat lunch. Ethan handed Noah money for the muffin, and the boy ran off with Lily following him to the counter, which left Mara and Ethan alone at the table with nothing but 10 years of silence between them. Your son, Mara said finally. He seems great. He is. Ethan's voice was tight. His mother passed away 18 months ago. Cancer. The words hit Mara like a physical blow. Ethan, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. How could you? It came out harsher than he probably intended, and he rubbed his face. Sorry, that was unfair. No, you're right. Mara felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. This wasn't about her grief. I'm still sorry. For your loss. For Noah's loss. Ethan looked at his son standing at the counter with Lily laughing at something she'd said. He's been doing better lately. The first year was hard, but kids are resilient, more than we give them credit for. And you? The question slipped out before Mara could stop it. Are you doing better? He turned back to her, and for the first time she saw the real emotion beneath the careful control. Exhaustion, grief, loneliness so profound it made her chest ache. I'm here, he said simply. That's about all I can manage most days. Mara nodded. She understood that better than she wanted to admit. Yeah, me too. They sat in that shared understanding for a moment. Two people who had loved each other once and then learned to survive without each other, now finding themselves in the same small cafe in a town full of memories neither of them could escape. I should go, Ethan said finally, standing. It was good to see you, Mara, despite everything. You too. He called Noah over, paid for their muffins, and headed toward the door. But halfway there, he stopped and turned back. The house, he said. Your grandmother's house. If you need help with repairs or anything, I know some good contractors. I could send you their numbers. It was such a normal offer, so everyday and practical. But the way he said it made it sound like something else entirely, like an olive branch, or maybe a question. Thank you, Mara said. That would be helpful. He nodded, started to leave again, then stopped one more time. Mara. Yes. Why did you really come back? The question she'd been asking herself for months, the one she didn't have a good answer to. I was tired, she said finally. Tired of running. Tired of pretending I didn't leave part of myself here. Ethan's expression was unreadable. Did you find it, the part you left behind? I don't know yet. He looked at her for a long moment, and she thought he might say something else. Instead, he just nodded and walked out into the autumn afternoon, Noah trailing behind him. Lily came back to the table, her face bright with excitement. Mom, Noah invited me to his birthday party next weekend. Can I go? Please. Mara watched through the window as Ethan and Noah got into a truck parked on the street. Ethan's movements were careful, practiced the actions of a man who had learned to hold himself together through sheer force of will. We'll see, Mara said, though she already knew the answer would be yes, because she was back in Asheville now, and that meant facing everything she'd left behind, including the man she'd loved enough to leave because she hadn't trusted herself enough to stay. The house fought her every step of the way. Mara spent the next week discovering just how much work needed to be done. The roof leaked in 2 places. The plumbing was original to the house, which meant 1890s-era pipes that groaned and shuddered every time she turned on a faucet. The electrical system was a fire hazard waiting to happen. She made lists, drew up plans, called contractors, most of whom couldn't start for weeks, threw herself into the work because it was easier than thinking about the encounter at the cafe, about the look on Ethan's face when she'd said she was staying permanently, about the fact that she'd dreamed about him every night since. Lily started school on a Wednesday. Mara drove her to the building, watched her daughter walk through the doors with her new backpack and forced confidence, and felt her chest constrict with worry. New schools were hard. New states were harder. She'd uprooted Lily's entire life because she needed to escape her own mistakes. She'll be fine, she told herself, sitting in the parking lot long after the bell rang. Kids are resilient. It sounded like something Ethan had said. That probably meant something, but she wasn't ready to examine what. She drove to a hardware store, bought supplies she probably didn't need, and came home to an empty house that felt too big and too quiet. The silence pressed against her ears, broken only by the ticking of the old clock in the hallway and the settling sounds of a house that had stood for over a century. In the late afternoon, she found herself in the attic. She hadn't meant to go up there. She'd been organizing the second-floor bedroom, the one that would be her office, once she got everything set up when she noticed the pull-down ladder to the attic. Curiosity got the better of her. The space was filled with boxes, old furniture, and the accumulated debris of multiple generations. Mara moved through it slowly, her architect's eye cataloging the bones of the structure, even as her heart cataloged the memories. That's when she found the box. It was labeled in her grandmother's neat handwriting, Mara's Things. Inside were relics from her teenage years, yearbooks, art projects, a dried flower from prom, and underneath all of it, a shoebox tied with string. She knew what it was before she opened it. Letters, dozens of them, some addressed to her mother, never sent, some addressed to Ethan, also never sent, and some addressed to no one at all, just thoughts poured out onto paper during those long nights when she'd been trying to figure out who she was and what she wanted, and why the thought of staying in one place forever made her feel like she couldn't breathe. She picked up one at random, dated 3 weeks before she'd left. I love him. That's the problem. I love him so much it scares me. Mom loved Dad like this, and look what happened. She chose art over us, chose freedom over family. What if that's who I am too? What if love isn't enough to keep me here? What if I'm already too much like her? Mara set the letter down with shaking hands. She'd forgotten writing this. Forgotten the raw terror that had driven her decisions back then. Or maybe not forgotten, just buried it so deep she could pretend it didn't exist. She spent the rest of the afternoon reading through the letters, watching her younger self spiral through fear and self-doubt, and a conviction that leaving was the only way to avoid becoming her mother. The irony wasn't lost on her, huh? In trying not to abandon anyone, she'd abandoned the person who mattered most. By the time she went to pick up Lily from school, she felt hollowed out, scraped clean of pretense. Which is probably why when she saw Ethan's truck parked in the school lot and saw him standing near the entrance, talking to another parent, she didn't immediately look away. He noticed her, raised a hand in greeting that was neither warm nor cold, just acknowledgement of presence. Mara raised her hand back. The kids burst out of the building in a chaos of noise and movement. Lily ran to the car, her face flushed with excitement, talking a mile a minute about her day, her new teacher, the friends she'd made. And I saw Noah, she said as Mara drove away. He said I should come to his party on Saturday. You said we'd see, so can we see now? Please. Mara glanced in the rearview mirror. Ethan was helping Noah into his truck, his movements patient and practiced. Yes, she said. You can go. See, she down. Lily pumped her fist. Mom, you're the best. Mara wasn't sure that was true, but she was trying. That had to count for something. That night after Lily was asleep, Mara sat on the porch with a glass of wine and her phone below him. She'd been avoiding social media since the divorce, but now she found herself searching for Ethan's name. His veterinary practice had a Facebook page. Photos of him with various animals smiling that same smile she remembered. Testimonials from grateful pet owners. A staff photo that included a woman with kind eyes labeled as Dr. Sarah Hayes. His wife. Had been his wife. Mara clicked on Sarah's profile before she could stop herself. The page was now memorialized, frozen in time. The last post was from 3 years ago, a photo of Ethan and Noah at the beach, all three of them laughing. Sarah's hair whipping in the wind. She looked happy, they all did. Mara closed the app, guilt settling over her like fog. She had no right to these glimpses into Ethan's life. No right to the jealousy that twisted through her chest when she saw how complete his family had been. No right to mourn something she'd given up voluntarily. She'd made her choice 10 years ago. The fact that it had turned out to be the wrong one didn't change anything. Or did it? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Ethan. Got your number from the school directory. Hope that's okay. Noah won't stop talking about Lily. He's excited to have a new friend. Party is at 2 p.m. Saturday at our house. I'll send you the address. Mara stared at the message for a long time before responding. That's fine. Lily's excited too. Thank you for the invitation. A pause, then, it's good to have you back, Mara, even if it's complicated. She read that message a dozen times trying to parse what it meant. Good to have her back. Complicated. Finally, she wrote, it's good to be back, even though it's terrifying. Fear means you're doing something that matters, or something incredibly stupid. Sometimes those are the same thing. Mara smiled despite herself. This easy exchange, this familiar rhythm, this was what she'd been missing without knowing it. The way Ethan understood her, even after everything. She should probably stop texting him. Should maintain boundaries, protect them both from reopening old wounds. Instead, she wrote, I found letters today. Ones I wrote before I left. Reading them was like meeting a stranger who happened to have my face. The reply took longer this time. What did the stranger have to say that she was scared? That she didn't trust herself? That she thought leaving was the brave choice? Was it Mara looked out at the dark street at the mountains visible as darker shapes against the night sky? No. Running is never brave. It's just running. Then why did you do it? The question every relationship counselor, every therapist, every well-meaning friend had asked her over the years. The question she'd never been able to answer honestly because she'd never been honest with herself. Because I watched my mother choose art over family, and I was terrified I'd do the same thing. So I left before I could hurt you the way she hurt me. She hit send before she could second-guess it, her heart pounding. The response came quickly, Mara. You're not your mother, I know that now. Took me 10 years and a failed marriage to figure it out. Better late than never, is it though? Better late. This time the pause stretched long enough that Mara thought maybe he wouldn't respond. Maybe she'd pushed too far, said too much, opened doors that should have stayed closed. Then ask me again in a few weeks. I don't know the answer yet. It was honest, more honest than anything else he could have said. Fair enough, she wrote back. See you Saturday. See you Saturday. Mara set her phone down and let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was just two people who had once loved each other, trying to figure out how to exist in the same town, in the same orbit, without destroying each other in the process. It was a start. Maybe that was enough. Saturday arrived gray and cold, the kind of autumn day that promised rain without quite delivering. Mara spent the morning helping Lily pick out an outfit for the party, a negotiation that somehow took an hour and involved trying on every article of clothing her daughter owned. It has to be perfect, Lily insisted. First impressions matter. You've already met Noah, Mara pointed out. Yeah, but this is different. This is a party. Everyone from class will be there. Mara recognized the anxiety beneath the words. New school, new friends, the constant low-grade terror of not fitting in. She remembered it from her own childhood, that feeling of being perpetually on the outside looking in. "You'll be great," she said, smoothing Lily's hair. "Just be yourself." What if myself isn't good enough? The question hit harder than it should have. Mara pulled her daughter into a hug. "Otsbaum, you're always good enough, exactly as you are." She wished someone had told her that when she was young. Wished she'd believed it even if they had. They arrived at Ethan's house at 10 past 2, late enough to not be first, early enough to not be rude. The house was a small craftsman-style bungalow on a tree-lined street with a yard full of kids and balloons tied to the mailbox. Mara's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You okay, Mom?" Lily asked. "Fine, just haven't been to a kid's party in a while." Liar, she thought. You're terrified of walking into his home, seeing how he's built a life without you confirming that you were nothing but a chapter he closed a long time ago. But Lily was already out of the car, clutching Noah's present, a book about space that she'd agonized over choosing. Mara followed her feet, carrying her up the driveway and into whatever came next. Ethan answered the door. He wore jeans and a dark blue Henley, his hair slightly damp, like he'd just showered. He looked tired but present, the way parents do at their children's birthday parties. "Hey," he said, "come in." The house was chaos in the best way, kids everywhere. The smell of pizza and birthday cake decorations that looked homemade and slightly lopsided. Mara felt something in her chest unclench. This wasn't a perfect Instagram-worthy party. This was real-life, messy and warm and lived in. "Noah's in the backyard," Ethan told Lily. "You can head out there." Lily darted through the house, leaving Mara standing in the entryway with Ethan. "Can I get you something to drink?" he asked. "Coffee, water, something stronger." "Coffee would be great." She followed him to the kitchen, trying not to look too closely at the photos on the walls, the evidence of a family that had existed here. But she couldn't help noticing that Ethan and Sarah at their wedding, Noah as a baby, beach vacations and Christmas mornings, and ordinary moments made precious by their documentation. "Cream and sugar?" Ethan asked, pulling her attention back. "Just cream, thanks." Oh, he prepared the coffee with the ease of someone who knew his way around a kitchen. Mara leaned against the counter, feeling awkward and out of place in this domestic scene. "The house is great," she said because she needed to say something. "Thanks. We bought it 5 years ago. Sarah wanted something we could make our own, not just rent, but actually own." He handed her the coffee, his expression carefully neutral. She picked out most of the paint colors, the fixtures. Had a whole vision for it. She had good taste. She did. Ethan took a sip of his own coffee. "It's weird living here without her. Sometimes I walk into a room and expect to do her, like she just stepped out and she'll be back any minute." Mara's throat tightened. "I can't imagine how hard that must be." "Some days are worse than others." He looked out the window at the kids playing in the yard. "Noah helps. Having to show up for him, keep going for him, it gave me a reason to get out of bed on the days I didn't want to." They stood in silence for a moment, the two people who had both learned that life didn't always turn out the way you planned. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said finally. "Sure. Why now? Why come back now after all this time?" Mara had known this question was coming. She'd prepared answers about her grandmother's house, about needing a fresh start, about giving Lily a different kind of childhood. All true, none of it the whole truth. "Because I was miserable," she said instead. "Because I built this life in Seattle that looked good on paper, good child, good marriage, good neighborhood, and none of it felt real. I kept waiting to feel like I'd arrived, like I'd finally become the person I was supposed to be. And then my marriage ended, and I realized I'd been running so fast towards some imaginary future that I'd never stopped to figure out what I actually wanted." "And what do you want?" "I don't know yet." She met his eyes. "But I know I needed to come back here to figure it out. This is where I ran from. So this is where I need to start." Ethan nodded slowly, like he was processing that. "Does it help being back?" "Ask me in a few weeks." She smiled slightly. "I don't know the answer yet." He smiled back, recognizing his own words. "Fair enough." A crash came from the backyard, followed by the immediate wail of a child. Ethan set down his coffee and headed for the door. "Duty calls." Mara followed him outside, where they found a boy sitting on the ground holding his knee, tears streaming down his face. Ethan crouched beside him, his voice calm and soothing. "Let me see, buddy." Okay, that's just a scrape. Nothing broken. You're tough, you can handle this. He cleaned and bandaged the knee with supplies from a first aid kit that appeared almost magically from a nearby table. The boy's tears slowed then stopped. Within minutes, he was back playing the injury forgotten. You're good at that, Mara said. Practice. Ethan stood brushing off his knees. Kids get hurt. It's part of the job description. Still, you made it seem easy. Nothing about parenting is easy. You just get better at faking it. Mara laughed, surprised by how natural it felt. This wasn't the stilted politeness of the cafe. This was something closer to who they used to be with each other, easy, comfortable, the kind of companionship that didn't require constant performance. They spent the rest of the party in a strange sort of dance together, but not together helping with games and cutting cake and corralling children while carefully maintaining a polite distance. Other parents introduced themselves. Tamara asked about her move, welcomed her to the neighborhood. She smiled and made small talk and pretended her attention wasn't constantly drawn back to Ethan. The way he laughed with Noah. The way he patiently helped a shy girl join a game. The way his smile still didn't quite reach his eyes, like he was going through the motions of happiness without quite feeling it. She recognized that performance. She'd been giving it herself for years. As the party wound down and parents started collecting their children, Mara found Lily and gently suggested it was time to go. Already, when Lily protested, but we're having fun. I know, honey, but Noah probably needs to rest. It's been a long day. They said their goodbyes to Noah, who hugged Lily with the unself-conscious affection of children. Then Mara walked back to the house to thank Ethan. She found him in the kitchen, staring at the disaster of plates and cups and wrapping paper with the glazed expression of someone wondering where to even start. Thank you for having us, she said from the doorway. Lily had a great time. Good. Noah did too. Ethan looked around at the mess. God, why do we do this to ourselves? Because we love them. Yeah, his voice softened. Yeah, that's true. Mara should have left then, should have collected Lily and gone home and maintained the boundaries they were both trying to establish. Instead, she heard herself say, "Want some help cleaning up?" Ethan looked surprised. You don't have to do that. I know, but you fed my kid pizza and cake for free. The least I can do is help with dishes. He smiled a real smile this time, the kind that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Okay, thanks. Lily was absorbed in a game with Noah and one other straggler, whose parent was running late, so Mara stayed. She and Ethan worked in companionable silence, loading the dishwasher, throwing away paper plates, breaking down the mountain of cardboard packaging. Sarah used to love birthday parties, Ethan said suddenly. She'd go all out, themed decorations, games, elaborate cakes. This year I tried to do what she would have done, but he gestured at the modest decorations. I'm not great at it. I think you did a wonderful job. Noah asked if it was okay to still have fun at his birthday without his mom here to see it. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. What do you even say to that? Mara set down the trash bag she was holding. What did you say, Mom? That she would want him to have fun? That loving someone doesn't mean you stop living when they're gone. He rubbed his eyes. I don't know if I believe that, but I needed him to believe it. For what it's worth, I think it's true. The people we love don't want us to stop living. They want us to keep going even when it hurts. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. Is that what you're doing? Keeping going even though it hurts, trying to. How's that working out? Some days better than others. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. They were both just trying to survive their respective losses. His more acute, hers more self-inflicted, but both equally real. The last parent picked up their child and Lily came bouncing into the kitchen with Noah trailing behind. Mom, can Noah come over sometime to see our house? Mara glanced at Ethan. If his dad says it's okay. Please, Dad. Noah looked up at Ethan with the kind of earnest hope that was impossible to deny. Well, sure, buddy, we'll figure something out. They walked to the door, the four of them, an accidental tableau of something that looked almost like a family but wasn't. Thanks again, Mara said, for everything. Anytime. Ethan's hand rested on Noah's shoulder, anchoring himself. And Mara, about what you said earlier about needing to come back here to figure things out. Yeah, I hope you find what you're looking for. There was something in his voice, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. The acknowledgement that people change, that time doesn't just pass, but transforms. Me too, Mara said softly. Me too. She and Lily walked to the car, and as Mara pulled away from the curb, she looked in the rear-view mirror. Ethan and Noah stood on the porch watching them go. The image wavered in the glass, distorted by distance and memory and 10 years of what-ifs. I like it here, Lily said suddenly. I like Noah. And his dad seems nice. He is nice, Mara agreed. Were you and him friends before? Something like that. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, do you think we'll stay, like really stay, not move again? Mara thought about the house waiting for them, full of repairs and memories. Thought about Ethan's tired smile and the way he'd said it was good to have her back. Thought about the version of herself who had run away because she was afraid of staying, and the version she was trying to become, someone who could face her fears instead of fleeing from them. Yeah, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I think we'll really stay. Good, Lily said, satisfied. She turned to look out the window at the passing streets. I think Grandma would have liked that. Mara's throat tightened. Yeah, honey, I think she would have too. They drove home through the failing light, the mountains dark against the sky, and for the first time since she'd come back to Asheville, Mara felt something that might have been hope. It was tentative, fragile. The kind of feeling that could be crushed by a careless word or action. But it was there, and that was enough. The weeks that followed took on a rhythm Mara hadn't anticipated. School pickups where she and Ethan would nod at each other across the parking lot. Text messages, coordinating playdates that were brief and practical, carefully avoiding anything personal. Lily and Noah becoming inseparable in the way children do their friendship, uncomplicated by history or hurt. Mara threw herself into renovating the house. She hired a contractor named Marcus, who quoted her a fair price and didn't ask too many questions about why a single mother was taking on a project this size. The work was good for her physical, tangible something she could control when everything else felt uncertain. She was in the backyard on a Thursday afternoon, examining the old swing set her grandmother had built decades ago, when she heard footsteps behind her. That thing's a death trap. She turned to find Ethan standing at the edge of her property line, hands in his pockets, looking almost apologetic for being there. Ethan, hi, what are you? Noah left his inhaler in Lily's backpack yesterday. Thought I'd stop by and grab it. He gestured toward the house. Your contractor told me you were back here. Oh, right. Mara brushed sawdust off her jeans. It's inside. I'll get it. Wait. He walked closer, examining the swing set. You're not actually thinking of fixing this, are you? I was considering it. Why? He reached out and shook one of the support beams. The whole structure swayed alarmingly. Because it's rotted through. One good storm and this thing's coming down. I can see that, hence the fixing. Mara, you'd need to rebuild it from scratch. The wood's too far gone. She knew he was right. She'd known it the moment she'd looked at the thing. But something about his certainty irritated her, the assumption that she needed him to point out what she could already see. I'm an architect, Ethan. I understand structural integrity. I didn't mean, he stopped, ran a hand through his hair. Sorry, I didn't come here to tell you how to renovate your house. The tension between them stretched thin, ready to snap. Then Mara sighed and some of the fight went out of her. No, I'm sorry. You're right. The swing set is beyond saving. She looked at it sadly. I just remember playing on it as a kid. Thought maybe Lily could too. Ethan's expression softened. We could build a new one. Yeah, I've got tools, basic carpentry skills. We could do it over a weekend. He paused. If you want. Mara should have said no, should have maintained the careful distance they'd been keeping. But she found herself nodding instead. Okay, yeah, that would be nice. Saturday work for you. Saturday's good. They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure what to do next. Then Ethan cleared his throat. I should get that inhaler. Right, of course. She led him into the house, acutely aware of his presence behind her. The house still looked like a construction zone, paint cans in corners, furniture covered in drop cloths, tools scattered across surfaces. She'd been living here for 3 weeks, and it still didn't feel like home. Place is coming along, Ethan said, looking around. Slowly. Mara found the inhaler in Lily's backpack and handed it to him. Very, very slowly. That's how these old houses are. They fight you every step of the way. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Our house, my house, was a mess when we bought it. Sarah spent 2 years renovating it. His voice caught slightly on his wife's name. She had this vision for what it could be. I just swung the hammer where she pointed. Mara didn't know what to say to that. Every conversation eventually circled back to Sarah, to the life Ethan had built with someone else while Mara had been busy running away. She sounds like she was an amazing person, she said finally. She was. Ethan looked at the inhaler in his hand. She would have liked you, actually. You two had a lot in common. Really. Both stubborn, both creative, both absolutely terrible at asking for help when you needed it. Mara smiled despite herself. I'm getting better at that last one. Are you? The question hung there, weighted with meaning, because they both knew she wasn't just talking about home renovation. I'm trying, she said. Ethan nodded slowly. That's all any of us can do. He started toward the door, then paused. Mara, about Saturday, if it's too weird us spending time together, it's not weird. It's a little weird. Okay, it's a little weird. She met his eyes. But weird doesn't mean wrong. And Lily would love a new swing set. Just Lily. The question was gentle, almost teasing. It reminded her of how they used to be able to joke even about difficult things, finding lightness in the heavy moments. I'd like it too, she admitted. Then Saturday it is. He smiled, that real smile she was starting to see more often. I'll bring coffee and power tools. You provide the location and moral support. Deal. After he left, Mara stood in her living room for a long time staring at nothing. She could still feel the echo of his presence in the house, the way the air felt different when he was in it. This was dangerous territory. She knew that, but she kept walking into it anyway, one small decision at a time. Saturday arrived cold and bright, the kind of October morning that made you want to be outside. Mara woke early and made breakfast for Lily, who was vibrating with excitement about the swing set. Is Mr. Ethan bringing Noah? Lily asked for the third time. Probably. Can Noah and I help? If his dad says it's okay. Lily bounced in her seat. This is going to be so cool. We're going to have the best swing set ever. Mara hoped her daughter was right. She'd looked up swing set plans online the night before, spent hours researching materials and designs when she should have been sleeping. Not because she cared that much about the swing set itself, but because she needed something to do with the nervous energy that kept her awake. Ethan arrived at 9 with Noah, a truck bed full of lumber, and 2 large coffee cups from Grace's place. 1 cream, no sugar, he said, handing Mara a cup. Still your preference. She was absurdly touched that he remembered. Yes, thank you. The kids immediately ran off to play, leaving the adults to unload materials. They worked in companionable silence, hauling wood into the backyard, laying everything out according to the plan Ethan had sketched on a piece of paper. You drew this, Mara asked, studying the design. Last night, couldn't sleep. He looked embarrassed. It's not professional or anything. It's good, really good. She traced the lines with her finger. You've got a natural eye for proportion. Learned it from watching you back in the day. Remember all those sketches you used to make, buildings, bridges, entire cities you were going to design someday? Mara had forgotten about those. Forgotten the version of herself who had been full of plans and dreams before fear had made her small. I designed buildings in Seattle, she said, mostly commercial spaces, nothing revolutionary. But you did it. You became what you said you would. Did I? The question came out more bitter than she intended. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like I spent 10 years going in circles, ending up right back where I started. Ethan set down the board he was holding and looked at her. You're not back where you started, Mara. You're just back where you belong. How can you say that after everything I did? Because I know you. His voice was gentle but firm. I knew you then, and I'm starting to know you again now. And one thing that was always true, you belong here, in these mountains, in this town. You just had to leave to figure that out. Mara felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back. I was so scared of staying, of turning into my mother. I know. You do. I always did. Ethan picked up his coffee, took a sip. You used to talk about her in your sleep sometimes. About how she left. About how you couldn't be like her. Mara stared at him. You never said anything. What was I supposed to say? That I knew you were planning to leave, that I could feel you pulling away months before you actually went? He shook his head. I thought if I just loved you enough, if I was patient enough, you'd realize you didn't have to run. Ethan, but that's not how it works, is it? You can't love someone into staying. They have to choose it themselves. The words landed between them like stones. Mara wanted to defend herself, to explain, but what was there to say? He was right. She'd made her choice, and he'd had to live with it. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know that doesn't change anything, but I am. So sorry. I know you are. He set down his coffee and picked up a measuring tape. Come on, let's build something. They spent the rest of the morning working on the swing set. Ethan measured and cut while Mara held boards steady and drove screws. The physical labor was meditative, allowing them to exist together without the weight of words. Around noon, Noah and Lily came running back hungry and full of energy. They all broke for lunch sandwiches that Mara had prepared earlier, eaten sitting on the porch while the kids chattered about school and friends and the elaborate game of make-believe they'd been playing. Dad, Noah said suddenly, can Lily and her mom come to dinner at our house sometime? Ethan glanced at Mara, a question in his eyes. I don't know, Bud. They might be busy. We're not busy, Lily announced. Right, Mom. 4 pairs of eyes turned to Mara. She felt trapped by the moment, aware that whatever she said next would mean something beyond the simple logistics of dinner plans. We'd love to, she said finally, if it's not too much trouble. It's not, Ethan said. How about Friday, nothing fancy, just dinner? Friday's perfect. The kids cheered and ran off again, leaving Mara and Ethan to finish their sandwiches in silence. But it was a different kind of silence now, less awkward, more comfortable. The silence of 2 people learning to be around each other again. They returned to building the swing set, the afternoon sun warm on their backs. At some point, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and declined the call. Everything okay? Mara asked. Yeah, it's the anniversary next week. Sarah's death. People keep calling to check on me. He drove a screw with more force than necessary. I appreciate it, but sometimes I just want to not think about it for 5 minutes. Mara understood that. The constant vigilance grief required the exhausting work of being sad on schedule. You don't have to think about it now, she said. Not if you don't want to. Thank you. He looked at her, gratitude in his eyes. Most people don't understand that. They think I should be talking about it all the time, processing or whatever. But sometimes I just want to build a swing set and not be the grieving widower for a few hours. And that's what we'll do. They worked until the light started to fade, until the swing set stood complete in the backyard, sturdy and solid. Nothing like the rotted structure they'd torn down that morning. The kids tested it immediately, their laughter echoing across the yard. We did good work, Ethan said, standing beside Mara as they watched. We really did. He turned to her, and there was something in his expression, vulnerability mixed with something else she couldn't quite name. Mara, I need to tell you something. Her heart stuttered. Okay. When you left 10 years ago, I was angry. So angry I couldn't see straight. I kept that letter you left, the one that just said, I'm sorry. And I must have read it 1,000 times trying to find some hidden meaning in those 2 words. Ethan, let me finish, please. He took a breath. Eventually, I stopped being angry and started being empty. Like there was this Mara-shaped hole in my life that nothing could fill. I tried. I dated other people, threw myself into vet school, moved on. And then I met Sarah, and she was wonderful and kind, and she loved me, and I thought maybe that hole had finally closed up. Mara's chest ached. But it didn't. But it didn't. His voice was soft. Don't get me wrong, I loved Sarah. Deeply. She was my wife, the mother of my son, and losing her nearly destroyed me. But even when I was happiest with her, there was always this small part of me that wondered about you, about what we could have been. I wondered too, Mara whispered. Every day. Then why didn't you come back? In all those years, why didn't you ever just come back? It was the question she'd been avoiding, the one she didn't have a good answer to. Because I was a coward. Because I thought I'd hurt you too much for forgiveness. Because by the time I realized I'd made a mistake, you had Sarah, and I thought you were better off without me. That wasn't your decision to make. I know that now. They stood there in the fading light years of unspoken words hanging between them. The kid's laughter seemed distant, like it was coming from another world. I can't do this again, Ethan said finally. Can't let myself care about you and then watch you leave. I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not leaving. You say that now. I mean it. Mara turned to face him fully. I'm not my mother, Ethan. It took me 10 years to figure that out, but I finally have. I'm not going to run away from good things because I'm scared. Not anymore. How do I know that's true? You don't. You just have to trust me. She paused. And I know I don't deserve your trust. I know I burned that bridge a mighty time ago. But I'm asking anyway, please, give me a chance to prove I'm different now. Ethan was quiet for a long time, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he wasn't sure he wanted to say. Finally, okay. Okay. I'm not promising anything. I'm not saying we can go back to what we were or build something new. I'm just saying, okay, I'll try to trust you. But Imara, you have to understand, if you hurt Noah, if you become important to him and then disappear, I won't, I promise. You promised before. The words hit like a slap, because he was right. She had promised in 100 small ways that she would stay, and then she'd left anyway. You're right, she said. My promises don't mean much, so I won't make any. I'll just show you day by day that I'm here for good. He studied her face like he was trying to read the truth written there. Okay, he said again. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even the beginning of forgiveness. But it was a crack in the wall he'd built, and that was more than she'd dared to hope for. Dinner at Ethan's house felt like stepping into an alternate timeline, one where she'd stayed, where they'd built a life together, where none of the pain between them existed. But that wasn't this timeline, and Mara had to keep reminding herself of that as she sat at his kitchen table on Friday night, eating pasta that Ethan had cooked while Noah and Lily set the table with exaggerated care. Noah's been practicing his table manners this week, Ethan said with amusement. I think he's trying to impress you. Well, I'm very impressed, Mara said to Noah, who beamed. They ate and talked about nothing important, school, the weather, the upcoming Halloween parade. Safe topics that didn't require excavating the past. But underneath the small talk, Mara felt the current of something else. Ethan's eyes on her when he thought she wasn't looking. The way their hands nearly touched when reaching for the same serving dish. The comfortable rhythm they'd already fallen into, like their bodies remembered being together, even if their hearts were still figuring it out. After dinner, while the kids played in Noah's room, Mara helped Ethan clean up. She washed dishes while he dried, the domesticity of it achingly familiar. Thank you for inviting us, she said. This was really nice. Noah's been excited about it all week. I think he... Ethan stopped his expression, troubled. What? He's getting attached. To Lily, obviously, but also to you. And I'm worried about what happens if... He trailed off, but she understood. If I leave. Yeah. Mara set down the dish she was washing and turned to face him. I meant what I said, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere. People say that all the time. They mean it when they say it, but life happens, circumstances change. I sold my house in Seattle. The words came out in a rush. Last week, my realtor called with an offer and I accepted it without thinking twice. That door is closed. I'm here permanently, whether you believe me or not. Ethan stared at her. You sold your house? Yes. Mara, that's... He ran a hand through his hair. That's a big decision. It was the right decision. Seattle was never home. This is home. She gestured around them. Asheville, these mountains. This is where I belong. He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then come with me. I want to show you something. He led her down the hallway to a small room that clearly served as his office. Medical texts on the shelves, a desk cluttered with paperwork, photos of Noah at various ages lining the walls. And in the center of the desk, a wooden box. Ethan opened it carefully, reverently. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with age, tied with string. Sarah wrote these, he said quietly, in the months before she died. One for every milestone she'd miss. Noah's first day of high school, his graduation, his wedding. She tried to fit a lifetime of advice into a box of letters. Mara's throat tightened. That's beautiful. There's one for me, too. She made me promise not to read it until a year after she was gone. He pulled out an envelope, held it like it might break. I read it 2 nights ago. And Kayanin, and she told me it was okay to move on. Said she didn't want me spending the rest of my life mourning her. His voice cracked. She said, if you find love again, don't let guilt keep you from it. The air in the room felt too thick to breathe. Mara understood why he was telling her this, why he'd brought her here to see something so intimate. Do you feel guilty? She asked. About whatever this is between us. Terrified is probably more accurate. He set the letter back in the box. Sarah was easy to love. She was kind and patient, and she never asked me to be anything other than what I was. But you, he turned to look at her. Loving you was never easy. It was intense and complicated, and it hurt like hell when you left. And some part of me is wondering if I'm stupid for even considering going through that again. I understand. And she did. She understood his fear because she felt it too, the terror of opening yourself up to someone who'd already proven they could destroy you. But here's the thing, Ethan continued. Sarah's letter said something else. She said you deserve the kind of love that challenges you, not just the kind that comforts you. And I think she knew somehow that you might come back. Ethan, I'm not saying I'm ready. I'm not saying I forgive you or that we can just pick up where we left off. But I'm saying I'm willing to try and to see if there's something here worth salvaging. Mara felt tears slide down her cheeks. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you giving me another chance. Maybe not. His smile was sad. But we rarely get what we deserve. We just get what we get and we decide what to do with it. They stood there in the dimly lit office, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Then Ethan reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek, his touch so careful it made her heart ache. Don't cry, he said softly. We're not making any big decisions tonight. We're just being honest with each other. That's all. I'm scared, Mara whispered. Me too. What if I mess this up again? Then we'll deal with it, together this time. No running away in the middle of the night. It was the closest they'd come to addressing what she'd done directly, the wound that had never quite healed. I'm sorry, she said for the 100th time, for leaving the way I did, for not explaining, for everything. I know. He let his hand drop back to his side. And I'm sorry too, for not fighting harder to keep you, for letting pride keep me from reaching out after you left. We both made mistakes. Can we really do this? Start over? Not start over, start different. He smiled slightly. We're not the same people we were 10 years ago. Maybe that's a good thing. Mara nodded, hope and fear warring in her chest. Maybe it is. They returned to the kitchen to find Lily and Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, tangled together like puppies. Mara looked at them and felt something crack open in her chest, a glimpse of what could be if she was brave enough to reach for it. I should get her home, she said reluctantly. Yeah. Ethan helped her gently wake Lily, who protested groggily, but eventually stumbled to the car. He walked them out, and at the car, Mara turned back to him. Thank you. For dinner, for the conversation, for everything. Thank you for coming. He paused, then added, see you at school pickup Monday. See you Monday. It was such a normal thing to say, such an everyday promise. But it felt momentous, like they were both agreeing to keep showing up, keep trying, keep moving towards something neither of them could quite name yet. Mara drove home through the dark streets, Lily sleeping in the back seat, and let herself imagine a future here. Not the one she'd run from 10 years ago, but something new. Something earned through pain and patience, and the hard work of becoming people who could love each other better. It felt terrifying and impossible and more real than anything she'd felt in years. The anniversary of Sarah's death fell on a Wednesday. Mara knew because Noah hadn't been at school for 2 days, and when she'd texted Ethan to check in, he'd replied with a single sentence, taking some time. We're okay. She wanted to respect his space, but she also couldn't stop thinking about him alone in that house, with his grief trying to be strong for Noah while falling apart himself. So she did what she hoped Sarah would have wanted. She cooked. Lasagna, salad, fresh bread, enough food for a week. She packed it all carefully and drove to Ethan's house on Wednesday evening, her hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. She almost turned back 3 times. This was probably overstepping. Probably too much. But she kept driving anyway because the alternative, leaving him alone on the worst day of his year, felt worse. He answered the door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, his eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. When he saw her standing there with the containers of food, something in his face crumpled. "Mara, I just thought you might not feel like cooking," she said quickly. "I can leave it on the porch if you want. I don't have to come in." For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in, please." The house was dim, curtains drawn against the afternoon light. Noah sat on the couch watching a movie, his face blotchy from crying. He looked up when Mara entered and managed a small wave. "Hi, Miss Mara." "Hi, sweetie." She set the food on the kitchen counter. "I brought some dinner, just in case you guys were hungry later." "That's really kind of you," Ethan said. His voice was hollow, like he was operating on autopilot. Mara wanted to hug him, wanted to tell him it would be okay, even though she knew how empty those words were. Instead, she just stood there, helpless in the face of his pain. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked quietly. "Or would you rather be alone?" Ethan looked at his son, then back at her. "Stay. If you don't mind, I think we could use the company." So she stayed. She heated up the lasagna and made them all eat, even though no one was hungry. She sat with Noah and watched his movie, while Ethan disappeared into his bedroom for 20 minutes and came back with his face washed and eyes dry. After Noah went to bed early, exhausted by emotion, Mara and Ethan sat on the back porch. The night was cold, their breath visible in the air, but neither of them suggested going inside. "It's been 18 months, Ethan said finally. "You'd think it would get easier." "Grief doesn't work that way. It just changes shape." "Yeah," he was quiet for a moment. "I keep thinking about all the things she's missing. Noah lost his first tooth last week. Sarah should have been there for that. She should be here for all of it. I'm sorry. I gained myself angry at her today. Isn't that stupid, angry at my dead wife for dying? Like she had any choice in the matter." "It's not stupid. Grief makes us feel impossible things." Ethan looked at her. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "My grandmother. When she died, I was furious at her for leaving me the house, for forcing me to come back and deal with everything I'd been avoiding. It took me weeks to realize I wasn't angry at her, I was angry at myself. For running away. For wasting so much time." Mara pulled her jacket tighter. "For all the years I could have spent here with her, getting to know her as an adult instead of just as a kid. For all the conversations we'll never have." They sat in the grief-soaked silence, two people who'd both learned that love and loss were inseparable, that you couldn't have one without risking the other. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said eventually. "Of course. If you could go back knowing everything you know now, would you still leave?" It was the kind of question that didn't have a good answer. Because if she hadn't left, she wouldn't have Lily, wouldn't have learned the lessons that had finally made her ready to stay. But she'd also spent 10 years in a life that never quite fit with a man she'd married, because he wasn't Ethan trying to outrun a truth that eventually caught up to her anyway. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I can't regret the path I took, because it led me to my daughter. But I regret the pain I caused you. I regret the time we lost. I regret being too scared to fight for what we had." Ethan nodded slowly. "That's a good answer, better than the easy one. There are no easy answers when it comes to us." "No." He smiled slightly. "There never were." Mara felt something shift in the air between them, a releasing of tension, like they'd both been holding their breath and finally let it out. "I should go," she said, though she didn't want to. "Let you get some rest." "Mara, wait." Ethan stood, his movement sudden. "I need to tell you something. Before I lose my nerve." Her heart stuttered. "Okay. When you left 10 years ago, I told myself I'd never forgive you. That I'd move on and forget, and you'd just be someone I used to know. And for a while, I really thought I had. I built a whole life that didn't include you." He paused, his voice rough. "But then you came back, and within 5 minutes of seeing you in that cafe, I knew. I knew I'd been lying to myself. Because I never stopped loving you, Mara. Not for one single day." The words hung in the cold air between them. Mara felt tears burning in her eyes, her throat too tight to speak. I'm not telling you this to pressure you or to ask for anything, Ethan continued. I need you to know. Because life's too short for lying. Sarah taught me that, and I've spent too many years already not saying the things that matter. Ethan, Mara's voice came out as barely a whisper. I love you too. I always have. Even when I was married to someone else, even when I was across the country trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice, I loved you. And I'm terrified of that love, of what it means, of what I could lose if I let myself feel it fully. But I'm more terrified of running away again. He closed the distance between them in two strides and pulled her into his arms. The hug was desperate, clinging the kind of embrace that said everything words couldn't. Mara buried her face in his shoulder and let herself cry for the time they'd lost, for the pain they'd caused each other, for the impossible, terrifying hope that maybe they could find their way back. We can't do this fast, Ethan said into her hair. I can't do fast. I need time to trust this, to trust us. I know, me too. And Noah has to be the priority. His heart's been broken enough. I wouldn't ask for anything else. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands framing her face. So what do we do? How do we navigate this? Carefully, Mara said. We go slowly. We're honest with each other. We don't make promises we can't keep, and we see where it goes. Okay. He rested his forehead against hers. Okay. They stood there on the porch as the temperature dropped and the stars came out, two people who'd loved each other half their lives, learning how to do it better this time. When Mara finally drove home an hour later, she felt lighter than she had in years. Like she'd been carrying a weight she hadn't known was there until it was gone. Lily was still asleep when she got back. Mara sat in her dark living room, looking out at the mountains visible through the window, and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not running towards something, not running away, just here, present, ready to build whatever came next, one careful choice at a time. The next few weeks took on a different quality, something tentative and precious like holding water in cupped hands. Mara and Ethan didn't tell the kids anything had changed. Nothing had really, except the air between them felt charged now, full of possibility. They still did pickups and drop-offs, still coordinated playdates. But now there were also late-night phone calls after the kids were asleep, conversations that stretched for hours about everything and nothing. Tell me about Seattle, Ethan said one night. The real story, not the edited version. So she did. Told him about the architecture firm where she'd been good but never great and always holding something back. About her ex-husband David, who was kind and stable and completely wrong for her. About the moment she'd realized her marriage was over, not because of a fight or infidelity, but because they'd been sitting together at dinner and she'd felt completely alone. We were like roommates who occasionally slept together, she said. It was comfortable but empty. And I kept thinking, this is it. This is what I left Asheville for. What did he say when you asked for the divorce? That he'd known for a while it was coming. That he hoped I'd find what I was looking for. Mara laughed bitterly. He was generous even in the ending, which somehow made it worse. Better than cruel. True, but sometimes I wish he'd fought for us, gotten angry or sad or something. His calm acceptance felt like proof that I was impossible to really love. That's not true, Ethan's voice was firm. You're just hard to love badly. You need someone who's willing to see all of you, even the scared parts. Mara felt her chest tighten. Is that what you're willing to do? I'm trying. They talked about Sarah too. Ethan told her about meeting his wife at vet school, about their courtship and marriage, about the way she'd made him laugh even on his worst days. She knew about you, he admitted one night. Early on when we were dating, I told her I'd been in love before and it hadn't worked out. She asked if I was over you and I said yes, but she knew I was lying. And she married you anyway. She said everyone has a first love that doesn't work out, said it was part of being human. He paused, but I think it hurt her sometimes knowing I had this whole part of my past I couldn't quite let go of. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sarah and I had a good marriage, an honest one. She knew what she was getting into. Mara wondered what it said about her, that even knowing Ethan had loved someone else, had built a life with someone else, she still felt this overwhelming need to be near him. Maybe it meant she was selfish. Or maybe it just meant love was more complicated than she'd ever understood. At school pickups, they started arriving early just to have a few minutes to talk before the kids came out. Other parents noticed started whispering. Mara didn't care. Grace, the owner of the cafe where they'd first reunited, pulled Mara aside one afternoon when she stopped in for coffee. "You and Ethan Hayes," Grace said with a knowing smile. "I'd wondered if that might happen." "Nothing's happened. We're just friends." "Honey, I've been running this place for 30 years. I know the difference between friends and people who are trying very hard to convince themselves they're just friends." Mara felt her face flush. "It's complicated." "The best things usually are." Grace squeezed her hand. "Your grandmother would be happy, you know. She always said you'd come back when you were ready." "Did she ever talk about me after I left?" "All the time. She wasn't angry if that's what you're worried about, just sad. She understood running away better than most." "What do you mean?" Grace's expression turned distant. "Your grandmother left home herself once, you know. Went to New York to paint. Only came back when her own mother got sick. She understood the pull between staying and going, between duty and desire." Mara had never known that, had never thought to ask about her grandmother's life before she'd settled in Asheville. Did she regret coming back? "I don't think so, but she regretted the years it took her to figure out where she belonged." Grace smiled. "Don't make the same mistake, honey. You're home now. Let yourself be home." The words stayed with Mara for days. Let yourself be home. Such a simple concept, but she'd spent so long being elsewhere, physically, emotionally, that being present felt almost foreign. She started making small commitments to permanence. Unpacked the last boxes, hung pictures on walls, enrolled Lily in activities for the spring, joined the PTA. Each decision felt like planting roots, like telling herself and the world that she was staying. And slowly the house stopped feeling like a construction project and started feeling like home. One Saturday in early November, Mara invited Ethan and Noah over for dinner. She cooked her grandmother's recipe for pot roast, the smell filling the house with memories. The kids ate quickly and ran off to play, leaving the adults alone at the table. "This is delicious," Ethan said. "Is this Grandma's recipe?" "Yeah." Mara smiled. "She taught me to make it the summer before I left for college. Said every woman should know how to make at least one perfect roast." "She was a wise woman." "She was." Mara took a sip of wine. "I've been thinking about what she'd say if she could see me now. Coming back here, renovating her house, trying to figure my life out at 36. What do you think she'd say? Probably about damn time." They both laughed. "She never understood why I left. Or maybe she understood too well, and that's why it hurt her." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was casual but intimate, like they'd been doing it for years instead of weeks. "You're here now. That's what matters." "Am I though really here?" Mara looked at their joined hands. "Sometimes I still feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong or for me to panic and run again." "You won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've been watching you." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "The way you talk about your renovation plans, the way you've thrown yourself into Lily's school, the way you show up. You're not acting like someone with one foot out the door." "What am I acting like? Someone who's finally ready to stay." The words settled into her chest warm and true. She was ready, had been ready for a while without realizing it. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of messing this up, of hurting you again, of Noah getting attached, and then Mara." Ethan squeezed her hand. "We're all scared, but we can't let fear make our decisions. We tried that before, remember? It didn't work out so well." "No, it didn't." "So what if we tried something different this time? What if we just let ourselves be happy even though it's terrifying?" Mara looked at him, really looked, at the gray in his hair and the laugh lines around his eyes and the way he was looking at her like she was something precious and worth fighting for. And she realized he was right. They'd spent enough years being afraid. "Okay," she said, "let's try being happy." His smile was slow and beautiful. "Yeah, yeah. So what does that look like, us being happy?" "I don't know. Maybe we could start with a real date one where we're not hiding behind our kids or pretending this is just friendship." "I'd like that." Ethan paused. There's a new restaurant downtown. French place? Very romantic, according to Grace. Of course Grace told you about it. She's been not so subtly pushing us together since day one. Mara laughed. I noticed. So when next Friday I can get a sitter for Noah. Perfect. It's a date. They smiled at each other like teenagers giddy with the newness of it. Then Ethan stood and pulled her up with him. Dance with me, he said. There's no music. So we'll make our own. And there in her grandmother's kitchen, with the smell of pot roast still lingering in the air and their children's laughter echoing from upstairs, they swayed together in silence. It was silly and perfect and exactly what they both needed. I missed this, Ethan murmured into her hair. Missed you. I'm right here. I know. That's the miracle of it. Mara closed her eyes and let herself lean into him fully. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. This time she was brave enough to stay. Their first official date happened on a Friday evening in mid-November. Mara changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple black dress that made her feel like herself, elegant, but not trying too hard. Lily watched from the doorway of her bedroom with knowing eyes. You look pretty, Mom. Thank you, honey. Is this a date, like romantic? Mara sat on the edge of the bed. Yes. Is that okay with you? Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking. I like Mr. Ethan, and Noah's my best friend, so yeah, it's okay. She paused. But Mom, don't mess it up this time. The words delivered with childlike bluntness hit harder than they should have. I'll try my best not to. That's all anyone can do. Lily hugged her, then pulled back. That's what you always tell me, remember? Mara felt tears prick her eyes. When had her daughter gotten so wise? You're right, thank you for reminding me. The babysitter arrived, a teenager from down the street who Lily had already decided was cool, and Mara drove to meet Ethan at the restaurant. He was waiting outside wearing a button-down shirt and looking nervous in a way that made her heart squeeze. Hi, he said when she approached. Hi. They stood there for a moment, suddenly awkward now that this was official, now that they couldn't hide behind the kids or home improvement projects. You look beautiful, Ethan said finally. You look pretty good yourself. He offered his arm and she took it, and they walked into the restaurant like adults on a first date who also happened to have loved each other for nearly 2 decades. The restaurant was small and intimate, all candlelight and soft music. They were seated at a corner table away from other diners, and Mara was grateful for the privacy. I haven't been on a real date in years, she admitted after they'd ordered wine. Me neither. Sarah and I used to have date nights, but after she got sick, he trailed off. We just never got back to it. We don't have to talk about her if you don't want to. No, it's okay. She's part of my life, part of who I am now. Ethan took a sip of wine. I think she'd like you. I think you two would have been friends. Mara didn't know what to say to that. The generous heart it took for him to even imagine such a thing felt almost impossible. I hope so, she said finally. She sounds like she was an incredible person. She was, but so are you. I don't know about that. I do. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. Mara, you made mistakes. We both did. But you came back. You faced everything you'd been running from. That takes courage. Or desperation. Sometimes those look the same. They talked through dinner about their doubts, their kids, their dreams for the future. Easy conversation that flowed like wine, punctuated by laughter and long looks that said everything words couldn't. Over dessert, Ethan grew serious. I need to tell you something. Mara's stomach dropped. Those words never preceded good news. Okay, I got an offer last week. A veterinary practice in Portland. It's a big opportunity partnership track, better pay, all of that. The room seemed to tilt. Portland, as in Oregon. Yeah, that's across the country. I know. He squeezed her hand. I haven't accepted it, haven't decided anything yet. But I needed you to know it exists. Mara felt panic rising in her chest. History repeating itself, only this time she was the one being left. When do you have to decide? End of the month. 3 weeks. She had 3 weeks before he potentially disappeared from her life again. What are you leaning toward? She tried to keep her voice steady. I don't know. It's a good opportunity professionally. And part of me thinks maybe a fresh start would be good for Noah, somewhere without memories of Sarah on every corner. And us, the question came out smaller than she intended. What about us? Ethan looked pained. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out. Because we just started this, whatever this is. And I don't want to make decisions based on something that might not last, Mara finished. Because that's what he meant, even if he was too kind to say it. He didn't trust her enough to turn down a life-changing opportunity. And could she blame him? She'd left once before. She'd proven herself capable of walking away when things got hard. I'm sorry, Ethan said. I know the timing is terrible. No, you have to do what's right for you and Noah. I understand that. But she didn't understand, not really. What she understood was that the universe seemed determined to keep them apart, that maybe some loves were never meant to work out, no matter how much you wanted them to. They finished dinner in subdued silence. The drive home was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. When Ethan walked her to her door, he pulled her into a hug. I'm not trying to hurt you, he said into her hair. I just need to be smart about this. For Noah's sake. I know. Mara held him tight, memorizing the feel of him. I know. He kissed her forehead and left, and she stood on the porch watching his taillights disappear, feeling like she was 17 again and watching him drive away. Only this time she hadn't even gotten to say a real goodbye. The next 2 weeks were torture. Mara and Ethan still did pickups and drop-offs, still coordinated playdates, but there was a new distance between them, a careful guardedness that hurt more than anger would have. Lily noticed. Why doesn't Mr. Ethan come over anymore? He's been busy, honey. With deciding if we're moving to Portland? Mara's head snapped up. What? Noah told me his dad might take a new Guam and they'd have to think. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I don't want them to go, Mom. Noah's my best friend. Mara pulled her daughter into a hug, her own heart breaking. I know, baby. I don't want them to go either. Can't you stop them? It's not my decision to make. But you love him, don't you, Ethan? The question hung in the air. Mara had been so careful not to say those words out loud, as if not speaking them might somehow protect everyone from the inevitable hurt. Yes, she said finally, I do love him. Then tell him. Maybe if he knows he'll stay. If only it were that simple. But Mara had learned the hard way that love didn't always mean staying. Sometimes it meant letting go. Sometimes it meant respecting someone else's choices even when they destroyed you. It's more complicated than that, sweetheart. Adults always say that. Lily pulled back her expression fierce in a way that reminded Mara of herself. But I don't think it is. I think people just make it complicated because they're scared. Out of the mouths of babes. That night after Lily was asleep, Mara found herself in the attic again, going through boxes looking for something she couldn't name. She found old photos her and Ethan at 17, 18, 19. So young and certain that love was enough. She found the letter she'd written and never sent. All those words she'd been too afraid to say out loud. And she found something else. A small box she didn't remember putting there. Inside was a dried flower from the corsage Ethan had given her at prom and a note in his handwriting. Mara, I know you're scared. I know your mom leaving messed you up, but I need you to know something. You're not her. You're you, and that's exactly who I want. If you need to leave to figure that out, then go. But know that I'll be here when you come back. However long it takes, I promise. And the note was dated 2 days before she'd left. He'd known. He'd known she was planning to go, and he'd still let her. Had still loved her enough to give her the freedom to choose, even knowing she'd choose wrong. Mara sat in the dusty attic, clutching the note, and let herself cry. For the girl she'd been, for the man who'd loved her anyway. For all the years they'd lost because she'd been too afraid to trust what they had. She couldn't let it happen again. Couldn't let fear make her decisions. If Ethan left, that was his choice. But this time she was going to fight. This time she was going to be brave enough to ask him to stay. The next morning, Mara called Grace at the cafe. I need your help with something. Finally, Grace said, satisfaction in her voice. What took you so long? By that afternoon, Mara had a plan. It was risky and probably stupid, but it was also the most honest thing she'd done in years. She spent the next week preparing, making calls, arranging details, trying to create something that would show Ethan what words couldn't quite capture. She saw him at school pickup, and the distance between them felt like a physical thing. She wanted to tell him what she was planning, but she held back. This needed to be right. This needed to be perfect. On the Thursday before Thanksgiving, Lily came home from school crying. "Noah's leaving," she sobbed. "His dad accepted the job. They're moving in January." The words hit Mara like a punch to the chest. He'd decided he was leaving, and he hadn't even told her. She got Lily settled with hot chocolate and a movie, then grabbed her phone. Texted Ethan, "We need to talk." His response came 10 minutes later. "Can you come over? After the kids are asleep, I'll be there." Mara spent the evening going through the motions: dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. Her mind was elsewhere, racing through everything she wanted to say, everything she needed him to know. At 9, she drove to Ethan's house. He answered the door, looking exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Come in." They sat in the living room, the space between them on the couch feeling like miles. "You accepted the job," Mara said. "Not a question." "Yeah, this morning." He ran a hand through his hair. "I should have told you first. I'm sorry." "Why?" The word came out sharper than she intended. "Why are you leaving?" "Because it's the smart choice. Better pay, better opportunities, a chance for Noah to start over somewhere without ghosts around every corner." "That's not a reason. That's an excuse." Ethan's jaw tightened. "What do you want me to say, Mara? That I'm running away? Maybe I am. Maybe I learned it from you." The words landed like a slap. She deserved them, but that didn't make them hurt less. "I'm not running anymore," she said quietly. "I sold my house in Seattle. I've been renovating Grandma's place to make it permanent. I joined committees, made commitments, built a life here. Because I finally figured out that home isn't a place, it's the people you love. And I love you, Ethan. I love you and Noah and the life we could build together if you just give us a chance." "Mara, let me finish, please." She took a shaky breath. 10 years ago, I left because I was scared. Scared of being like my mother, scared of hurting you, scared of what it meant to stay in one place forever. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. But you already know that. What you don't know is that I've spent every day since then regretting it, every single day. Then why didn't you come back sooner? Because I thought I'd hurt you too much. I thought you deserved better than someone who rushed at the first sign of trouble. And then you had Sarah, and you built this beautiful life, and I thought that meant I'd made the right choice after all. That you were better off without me." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "You want to know what the worst part was after you left?" "What?" "That I understood. I was angry, but I understood why you did it. Because I knew you, Mara. I knew your fears, your scars, the way your mother's leaving had broken something in you. And I knew that no matter how much I loved you, I couldn't fix that. You had to fix it yourself. I'm trying. I've been trying. I know you have. And I see how hard you're working to stay, to be present, to build a life here. But Mara, I can't base my decision on that. I have to think about Noah, about what's best for him. And you think leaving is what's best. I think not getting attached to someone who might leave again is what's best." There it was, the truth they'd been dancing around. He didn't trust her, and after everything she'd done, she couldn't blame him. "Okay," she said, standing. Her legs felt weak, but she forced them to hold her. "Okay, I understand." "Mara, wait. No, you're right. You have to do what's best for Noah. And maybe that means protecting him from me." She headed for the door, tears blurring her vision. "I hope Portland is everything you need it to be." "Mara, please." But she was already out the door, or getting in her car, already driving away before he could see her fall apart. She made it 2 blocks before she had to pull over, sobbing too hard to see the road. This was it. This was the consequence of her choices a decade ago. She'd run once, and now he was running from her. Fair, maybe, but it didn't hurt any less. Thanksgiving came and went in a blur. Mara cooked a small dinner for her and Lily, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy. But her heart wasn't in it, and Lily knew. "You should call him Mom. He's made his decision, honey. But you didn't fight for him. You always tell me to fight for what I want. This is different." "Why, Mom?" "Because I already lost once," Mara wanted to say. "Because I'm tired of fighting battles I can't win. Because sometimes loving someone means letting them go. But she didn't say any of that. She just hugged her daughter and tried to pretend her world wasn't falling apart. The weekend after Thanksgiving, Grace called. I heard about Ethan's job offer. News travels fast. Small town, honey. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing. It's his decision. That's the biggest load of crap I've heard in weeks. Grace's voice was sharp. Your grandmother didn't raise you to be a quitter. I'm not quitting. I'm respecting his choice. You're giving up. There's a difference, or by a pause. You want to know what your grandmother told me right before she died? What? She said, if Mara ever comes back, tell her that running doesn't solve anything. It just delays the inevitable. She knew you'd come home eventually. She just hoped you'd figure out why before it was too late. Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes. I did figure it out. I came back. I stayed. But it doesn't matter because he's still leaving. Have you told him what you're planning? What I was planning, past tense. It doesn't matter now. Mara Chen, don't you dare give up on this. Not when you're so close. Close to what he's moving to Portland in 5 weeks. It's over. It's only over if you let it be over. Now listen to me very carefully. You have one more chance to do this right. Don't waste it. After Grace hung up, Mara sat staring at her phone. One more chance, but what was she supposed to do? Show up at his door and beg him to stay? That wasn't fair to him or Noah. They had the right to make their own choices. But maybe Grace was right. Maybe giving up wasn't the same as respecting someone's choice. She pulled out her laptop and looked at plane tickets. Portland to Asheville, then Asheville to Portland. An idea started forming. Risky, possibly stupid. Definitely the kind of grand gesture that only worked in movies. But then again, her whole life had felt like a movie lately. Might as well lean into it. Ethan's flight was scheduled for Wednesday, December 18th, a scouting trip he'd told Noah. 3 days in Portland to find a house, meet his new partners, get everything arranged before the big move in January. Mara knew this because Lily had heard it from Noah and because she'd possibly checked Ethan's social media more times than she wanted to admit. She made her own plane reservation for the same day. Same flight, different confirmation number. The plan was insane, but it was also the most honest thing that she could think to do. The night before the flight, she couldn't sleep. She kept rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd explain showing up at the airport like some kind of rom-com stalker. At 5 a.m., she gave up on sleep and started getting ready. The flight was at 11. She'd need to leave by 9 to make it to the airport in Charlotte. Lily came into her room as she was packing an overnight bag. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this. What if he gets mad? Then at least I tried. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, pulled her daughter close. You were right, honey. Adults do make things too complicated. Sometimes you just have to be brave and go after what you want. I'm proud of you, Mom. Those 4 words nearly broke her. Thank you, baby. That means everything. She dropped Lily at a friend's house, the same one Ethan was leaving Noah with while he was gone, and drove toward Charlotte. The 2-hour drive felt both too long and too short. She rehearsed speeches, then discarded them. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt like enough. Maybe there weren't enough words. Maybe she just had to show up and hope that was sufficient. She parked and then made her way into the airport, nerves jangling in her chest. She had no idea if this would work. Had no idea if Ethan would even listen to her. But she was here. That was something. She checked in, went through security, made her way to the gate, sat in a corner seat where she could watch for Ethan without being immediately visible. He arrived an hour before boarding, looking tired but determined. He checked in at the desk, then found a seat across the waiting area and pulled out his phone. Mara watched him, her heart pounding. This was it. Last chance to back out. She stood up, walked across the gate area, stopped right in front of him. Ethan looked up, shock flooding his face. Mara, what are you? I'm not letting you. The words came out stronger than she felt. Not without a fight, not this time. He stood looking around like he was checking if this was real. You're supposed to be in Asheville with Lily. Lily's with friends, and I'm supposed to be here with you. Mara, I have a flight. I know, I'm on it. You're what? I booked a ticket, same flight. Because you were right, I didn't fight for us before. I just ran away. But I'm not running anymore, Ethan. I'm running toward you. He stared at her, emotions warring on his face. You can't just show up at the airport and expect, I'm not expecting anything. I'm just asking. Give me 3 days. Come to Portland. Look at the opportunity. Make your decision. But let me be there. Let me show you what we could be if you just trust me. Mara, I love you. The words came out raw and desperate. I've loved you since we were 17. I've loved you through a decade apart, through my entire failed marriage, through every stupid decision I've made. And I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I hurt you. But I'm asking anyway, please. Don't leave without giving us a real trio. Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he'd refuse. Then, I'm scared. Me too. What if you change your mind? What if 6 months from now, you decide Asheville is too small, or too quiet, or too whatever? Then we'll deal with it. Together. I won't run, Ethan. I promise you that. You promised before. I know. And I broke that promise. But I was young and scared, and I didn't understand what I was giving up. She took his hands. I understand now. I understand that home isn't a place, it's you. It's Lily and Noah. It's building something real together. And I'm not going to run from that ever again. He searched her face like he was trying to read the truth written there. Boarding starts in 20 minutes. I know. If we do this, if I let you come, it doesn't mean I'm not taking the job. I know that too. Then why are you here? Because I wanted you to know that wherever you go, I want to go too. If Portland is where you need to be, then I'll figure out how to make that work. I'll find architecture firms, there get Lily enrolled in school. We'll visit Asheville on holidays. I'll do whatever it takes to be with you. Ethan's eyes went wide. You'd move to Portland. For you, in a heartbeat. But your grandmother's house, all your renovation work, can be rented out or sold if needed. Ethan, I spent 10 years building a life around running away from you. I'm ready to build one around running towards you instead. He pulled her into his arms, then burying his face in her hair. She felt him shaking, felt tears soaking into her shoulder, and held him tighter. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed, the sound wet with emotion. Mara Chen, you are the most infuriating, complicated, brave woman I've ever met. Is that a yes? He pulled back just enough to look at her. It's a let's see what happens in Portland. I'll take it. They stood there in the middle of the airport holding each other while travelers streamed past, and Mara felt something in her chest finally unlock. This was what it meant to fight, to show up, to choose love even when it was terrifying. The boarding announcement crackled over the speakers. Ethan took her hand and they walked to the gate together. Just so you know, he said as they got in line, I'm pretty sure this violates several stalking laws. Worth it. Yeah, he squeezed her hand. Yeah, it really is. Portland was gray and wet exactly how Mara had imagined it. They rented a car at the airport and drove to the hotel Ethan had booked, one room now, very awkwardly shared between two people who were technically not together but also not quite apart. I can get my own room, Mara offered. Don't be ridiculous, it has 2 beds. They spent the evening talking, really talking in a way they hadn't been able to before, about fears and hopes and what they each wanted from life. Ethan told her about Sarah's final months, about making the decision to let her go when the pain became too much. Mara told him about the slow death of her marriage, about realizing she'd married David because he was safe, not because she loved him. I thought safe was enough, she admitted. I thought if I just found someone stable and kind, I could build a happy life. But you can't build happiness on the absence of risk. You have to actually want to be there. And you want to be here with me. More than I've wanted anything in years. They fell asleep in their separate beds, hands clasped between them across the space. The next day, Ethan met with his potential partners. Mara went for a walk, exploring the city, trying to imagine a life here. The coffee shops and bookstores and rainy streets had their charm. She could be happy here, she thought. If Ethan was here, she could be happy anywhere. That afternoon, they looked at houses in the suburbs, nice places with good school districts and yards big enough for dogs. The realtor chattered about property values and growth projections while Mara watched Ethan trying to gauge his reaction. He was non-committal about everything, polite but distant. Over dinner that night, Mara asked, "What are you thinking?" "I don't know." He pushed food around his plate. "It's a good opportunity. The practice is well established, the partners seem great, the schools are excellent for Noah. But, but it doesn't feel right. He set down his fork. I keep trying to imagine Noah here. Imagine us building a life in this city, and I can't see it. Why, because home is Asheville, because Noah's friends are there and Sarah's parents in the life we built. Because, he looked at her, because you're there. Mara's heart stuttered. Ethan, I need to tell you something, and I should have told you before, but I was scared. He took a breath. I was never going to take this job. What? I accepted it, yes, but I'd already decided I wasn't actually going. This whole trip was supposed to be me coming here, seeing that it wasn't right, and then having a reason to say no. Mara stared at him. I don't understand. I was running Mara, just like you did 10 years ago. I was so scared of getting hurt again that I was going to run 3,000 miles away. But then you showed up at the airport and you said you'd follow me anywhere. And I realized I was being an idiot. You were protecting yourself. That's not the same as running. Isn't it though? He reached across the table and took her hand. You were right to call me on it, to refuse to let me leave without a fight. Because that's what love is, isn't it? Up, even when it's scary. So what does this mean? It means I'm turning down the job. It means we're going back to Asheville. It means I want to try this thing between us, really try and see where it goes. Mara felt tears streaming down her face. You're staying. I'm staying if you still want me. Of course I want you. I've always wanted you. He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, kissing her properly for the first time in 10 years. It felt like coming home and starting an adventure at the same time. It felt right. When they broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. We're ridiculous, Mara said, completely. Ethan kissed her forehead. But we're ridiculous together, and that's what matters. They flew home the next day, leaving Portland's gray skies behind. During the flight, Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her something. I wrote this last night, after you fell asleep. I was going to give it to you before we left, but he trailed off. Just read it. It was a note typed into his phone, Mara, 10 years ago. I wrote you a letter you never read until last week. I told you I'd wait however long it took. I thought I meant it then, but the truth is I didn't really understand what I was promising. I understand now that I've lost you, found you again, loved you again, nearly lost you again. Now that I've learned what it means to really love someone, not the easy, comfortable kind of love, but the kind that asks you to be brave every single day. You ask me to trust you, to believe that you won't run this time, and I do. But more than that, I'm asking you to trust me, to believe that I won't run either, that we can build something together that's stronger than our fears. I love you, I've always loved you, and I'm ready to stop running. Mara read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. Ethan, don't say anything yet. I have something else. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Her heart stopped. It's not a ring. Open it. Inside was a key, old and slightly tarnished, attached to a keychain in the shape of a house. It's the key to my house, Ethan said. I'm not proposing. We're not there yet, and we both know it. But I'm asking you to have a place in my life that's real and permanent. A drawer for your things, space in the medicine cabinet, a key so you can come and go. I'm asking you to be part of Noah's life and my life in a way that's official. That's almost scarier than a ring. I know, but it's honest. It's what I can offer right now. Mara closed the box around the key, pressed it to her chest. Yes. God, yes. They held hands the rest of the flight, home the key safe in Mara's pocket, and talked about what came next. Slowly integrating their lives, family dinners, holidays together, teaching their kids that love didn't always come easy, but it was always worth fighting for. What do we tell Lily and Noah? Mara asked as they descended toward Asheville. The truth, that we're trying, that we don't know exactly what this will look like, but we're figuring it out together. You think they'll be okay with that? Ethan smiled. I think they'll be thrilled. He was right. When they picked up the kids that evening and told them they were going to try being a family, slowly, carefully, but officially, both Lily and Noah cheered. Finally, Lily said with the exasperation of an 8-year-old who'd watched her mother make every possible mistake. We were wondering when you two would figure it out. 6 months later, Mara stood in the backyard of her grandmother's house. Their house really, since Ethan and Noah were there as often as not, and watched the swing set Ethan had built swaying gently in the spring breeze. The renovations were finally done. The house was beautiful, a perfect blend of old and new history and future. Just like them. She heard footsteps behind her and leaned back into Ethan as his arms came around her waist. Penny, for your thoughts. Just thinking about how different everything is from a year ago. Better different. Definitely better different. They'd taken it slow, just like they promised. Some nights, Ethan and Noah stayed over. Some nights they didn't. They had family dinners 3 times a week. They were learning each other again, not who they'd been at 17, but who they were now at 37. It wasn't always easy. There were arguments and misunderstandings and moments when old fears resurfaced. But they didn't run. Either of them. They stayed and talked and worked through it. I heard from the Portland practice yesterday, Ethan said. They wished me well and said, if I ever change my mind, the door's open. And will you change your mind? Not a chance. He kissed the top of her head. My life is here, with you and Lily and Noah, with the practice I've built in the community we're part of. I'm exactly where I want to be. Me too. The back door opened, and Lily and Noah came running out home from the park where they'd been playing with friends. Mom, Mr. Ethan, watch us on the swings. They settled onto the porch steps and watched their kids play, Ethan's hand warm in Mara's. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, turning everything golden. Do you ever think about what would have happened, Mara asked, if I hadn't left 10 years ago? Sometimes, but then I remember we weren't ready then. We had to become who we are now to make this work. Do you really believe that, or are you just being nice? I really believe it. You needed to leave to figure out how much you wanted to stay. I needed to lose you to understand how much you meant to me. It's not a path I'd choose again, but it's the one we needed. Mara leaned her head on his shoulder, watching their children, not quite a blended family yet, but getting there, and felt something like peace settle over her. I'm happy, she said, almost surprised by the realization. Right now in this moment, I'm genuinely happy. Good. Ethan kissed her temple. You deserve to be. So do you. And then I guess we're both getting what we deserve. They sat there as the afternoon faded to evening, as the kids eventually tired of swinging and came to collapse beside them on the porch, as the sky turned shades of pink and orange that only existed in the mountains. This was home. Not the house, though she loved it. Not the town, though she'd finally made peace with it. Home was these people, these moments, this life they were building, one careful choice at a time. It had taken her 10 years and 3,000 miles to figure that out. But better late than never. And this time, she wasn't going anywhere. The end, author's note. Love doesn't always come easy. Sometimes it requires us to run away before we can learn to run toward. Sometimes it asks us to be brave enough to leave and brave enough to return. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it gives us a second chance to get it right. This is a story about those second chances. About the courage it takes to face the mistakes we've made and the grace it requires to forgive them. About building something new from the broken pieces of what used to be. Mara and Ethan's story doesn't end with a wedding or a perfect resolution. It ends with a choice, the choice to keep showing up, keep trying, keep building. Because that's what love is, not a destination, but a direction. Not a promise that nothing will go wrong, but a commitment to face whatever comes together. May we all be brave enough to make that choice when it matters most.